Harrison Fields, thanks for coming back and joining us. Let's just start off with this. Describe what the federal response is to what's happening in LA.
Well, the federal response is to restore order to the streets of one of America's largest cities, the city of Los Angeles, that absent leadership from the state and the local leaders, who are really just leaders in name only. This president, who was elected with a mandate to restore law and order, to secure the border, and to make America safe again, is taking decisive legal action to quell some of the chaos and to protect the federal assets on the ground. That's all he is doing.
God, thank you. First of all, I just wanted to say this to the team. After the show, let's trademark Linos, leaders in name only. I'm going to give Harrison, he's unfortunately in government, so I'll have to save his cut. But Harrison, I think you're the first person that has said this. Thank you for mentioning the federal assets. President Trump not only has a responsibility, but I dare say an obligation, I sound like Stephen Miller, to guard the lives and assets the federal government owns, right? So these lives, that he doesn't own the lives. But in other words, this isn't just him going in because there's a library in downtown LA that's under attack or a park. People are attacking ICE agents. They are attacking property of the federal government. And I argue that President Trump has a responsibility to protect it. And you're the first person that I've heard, at least, say that. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad I said it here first. But the reality is this is what he's doing. I mean, we cannot have our federal law enforcement agents, our brave men and women of ICE, endure the level of trauma that they're seeing. I mean, these people are getting battered and bloodied in the face of a hostile mob, some of which are not even American citizens. And then we have federal buildings that are also facing tremendous pressure. And we have a president now that is calling in the Marines, our National Guard, to protect the federal assets. And by doing so, you're going to see a level of restoration to order. But this is only possible because we have a president that's willing to act. And you also have leaders in the state that could have done this themselves. But they want to bow down to the radical leftist mob because Gavin Newsom, he's running for president. This is the trampoline to his presidential campaign. He understands the only way to potentially win a primary in his state and probably nationally is to stick it to President Trump, which is a disaster because the people in Paramount, the everyday men and women that are going to work, trying to make a living for their families, they don't want this chaos in the streets. They probably voted for the president because they want it to end. And the last thing I'll say on this is the president received 2 million more votes in California, historic level of support in California for this president. Californians are tired of the nightmare that they've been living in. They came to California for the California dream, and it's been an absolute nightmare under the Democrats.
I just, Harrison, I've said this before, but when I grew up, in getting into campaigns, it was we're for lower government, less taxes. These guys are now literally siding with criminals. They're waving Mexican flags. They're saying F ICE. They're hitting, they're just burning cars, throwing rocks at agents. They're frankly, here's the kicker, by the way, they're throwing stuff at reporters. The idea that the media is not even trying to protect their own is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, the reporters and whoever really is there is going to be collateral damage. These people have one sole focus, and that is to destroy the federal government and to destroy the fundamentals of what this president is trying to achieve. The American people voted for deportations. A record number of Latinos voted for deportations. A lot of the men and women of ICE that are tasked with this mandate from the president are also of Latino or Hispanic heritage. So we need to establish order. This is what this president is doing. We have absent leadership in the state and the local government, but this shouldn't be a surprise. We saw their leadership or lack thereof when the wildfires came. The mayor was in Africa when her city was burning down to celebrate some party in Nigeria. This is the type of failed leadership the city of Los Angeles is dealing with.
Yeah. I mean, look, the reality, though, is that this is the narrative in the media is, or from the left and those false elected leaders, is that President Trump's trying to escalate. The bottom line, if you look at the TikTok, is it was a Democrat assemblyman who went live on Instagram and tried to stream people and encouraged a crowd to gather in that lot in Paramount to then attack unprovoked, without evidence, as the left likes to say, these ICE agents who were merely showing up for work.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And they got it so wrong because they happen to be next to a Home Depot, but that's where the ICE facility is.
Right.
So they're completely wrong. Like the whole genesis of this riot is based off a false premise. And the Democrats who are continuing to say, get in the streets and protest. You had the senator 2 days ago from California, Padilla, basically encourage more protests. This is who they are. Maxine Waters, she already proved it years ago, back when you were in the White House. Get in their faces. Yeah. You know, do the rest of it. This is who they want. They want anarchy. This is who they are. And this president is not going to stand for it.
So you mentioned the Marines, and I think a lot of the LAPD was saying, well, we're not coordinating with them. Are you guys so if you're setting in, whether it's the National Guard or the Marines, what kind of coordination is happening with California law enforcement, with LA police or sheriff to ensure that the Marines are working hand in hand with those guys, or not?
Well, there's always going to be a level of coordination between federal assets and state and local assets. The police chief himself said that this situation is not sustainable and basically was looking for help because he can't have a city that's in anarchy the way it's been. So the Marines are going to come in and they know exactly how to deal with this type of situation. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was on Capitol Hill. He talked to the level of expertise that these men and women are going to be able to have, and they're going to be working to, again, protect federal assets. These are not some stormtroopers that are here to arrest people or to do any of the crazy things that the Democrats are speculating. Within the president's legal authority in the statute that was signed, they're just here to protect federal assets, and by doing so, you're going to quell some of the danger. But again, the governor and the mayor can do something about it. They could have done something about this on Friday when these riots were starting, and they would have rather watched their city burn down. A similar thing Tim Walz did. His wife opened the windows of the governor's mansion so she can take in the smell of burning Michelin tires. These people are insane, and this president, elected on that massive mandate, is doing exactly what the American people want. This is bad politics for the Democrats, and the Democrats know it too.
Oh, it's stupid politics. It's not, I mean, it's beyond bad. I mean, this is literally like, how can we dig ourselves deeper? But I don't want to dwell on this, but it is a talking point of the left, and I just want to make sure I follow up to get clarity on this. The Marines, federal assets, the National Guard have an absolute 100% right and obligation to defend federal assets. I'm 100%, as you know, on board on that. That's their job. The left is trying to make the case, though, not just the left. The LA police chief put out a statement saying that he's not aware. Is there an actual attempt to make sure that they connect the dots and to say, we got our stuff, you got your stuff, but just so you know, this is what we're doing, whether it's coordination or just awareness? Is the federal government making sure that the local police understand what the Marine Corps and National Guard will be doing?
My understanding is that the Department of Defense and their execution of this operational mission will, of course, speak to their local and state counterparts to make sure that this mission is done so in an appropriate and effective way. Now, what I can do is go back to our DoD counterparts and mention that there is some need for clarity there, and I'm happy to get that for you. But my understanding is that the DoD, working in coordination with DHS, also state and local leaders, will put forward plan and work together, because at the end of the day, it's not just the federal people on the ground. It's the heroes in blue, the men and women of the LAPD that are facing the same level of threats because their mayor would rather appease the radical left than the people that have been swearing an oath to protect and serve their community. It's absolutely devastating. If you talk to the men and women of the LAPD and the LA Fire Department, they will tell you that their leadership is absent. They feel like they are not represented. And that's a devastating reality that far too many of our heroes, in particularly blue cities and states, face every day, which is why they're moving back to my home state of Florida, where we always black the blue.
You do. I agree. I mean, look, people who become cops in particular do it because they have a a desire to want to serve and protect, and the last thing they need is feckless leadership at the top that doesn't support them or frankly allow them to do their job. So I get it. And my only point in bringing this up is that, like everything else, the left always focuses on the process. Like, so they go defend Abrego Garcia and say, oh, it's just about the process. And so my point in this is just, if we can button up the process, don't give them an excuse. Get focused, because President Trump is clearly winning this issue, both on the policy and on the politics. And I just don't want to give them the process piece to say, oh, well, they just didn't call us first, because they didn't do their job, and give them an out when they failed to show leadership.
Yeah, and I hear your point, and I take it. And one thing too, if the American people, if they hear the governor, if you're a resident of California, and the only thing that the governor is talking about is issues with the process, meanwhile your local CVS or the car in the middle of the thoroughfare which you drive is now on fire and you can't get to work on time, you don't care about process. You want to know where the police are, the same police that the Democratic Party try to defund. So the American people see through a lot of this process stuff. They want to know what is getting done to protect my community and protect my family. And the only person that's answered that question is the President of the United States, because he is there trying to make sure that there's some semblance of order when he's working with a mayor and a governor that doesn't want to play ball. They would rather see their city lit ablaze.
It's worse than that, Harrison. They're suing him. They literally, instead of stepping up and saying, gosh, my bad, like we should do our job, they're literally going to sue him. And Gavin Newsom's putting out a statement from all the other Democratic governors around the country saying they stand with him. Gavin Newsom, by the way, at the beginning of 2024, before President Trump office, said we need the National Guard. Like, he's suing President Trump because he's not doing his job.
Yeah, and Stephen Miller had an amazing response to Gavin Newsom, and he's basically just called him out on the litany of failed policies that this governor has presided over. His state is a sanctuary to millions of illegal immigrants, some of whom are dangerous criminals just running their street. It's a cesspool for homelessness. It's absolutely outrageous to live. No one can live in California. You can't afford a house. You can't afford gas. The taxes are incredible. The energy, you have brownouts and blackouts. It's absolutely insane. They want to get rid of gas-powered cars in favor of electric cars. California is a mess. No one wants to live there anymore. And it's a devastating reality because it's probably our nicest state. And the failed leadership of Democrats has just completely driven the state into the ground. And the president wants to restore California to its beauty and its majesty. We've got to make California great again.
It takes a lot for a guy from Florida to say that. Before I let you go, I want to just pivot to one other subject that you tweeted about yesterday, and the media is literally melting down because Bobby Kennedy dismissed all the people on this vaccine panel because he thought they were conflicted. There was too much money, too much conflict of interest. And so he dismissed this vaccine board at the Department of Health and Human Services. You tweeted out Secretary Kennedy's decisive action to overhaul the ACIP restores integrity to vaccine policy. The left's politicalization of science during COVID-19, coupled with the failures of so-called expert, opened America's eyes to systematic flaws. A new panel will rebuild trust, eliminate conflicts of interest, and prioritize public health with fresh perspective. How important is what Bobby Kennedy did yesterday to the overall public health?
It's so important because one of the things we're facing is that the American people just do not trust the science community. We've looked at these people and had such revere towards them. Meanwhile, they were feeding us lies, and little did we know they would give us advice, but in their back pocket, Big Pharma was funding them. So we cannot have conflicted experts on panels to tell me, as the father of an 8-month-old, how many vaccines I should be giving my daughter. My wife and I are going through this right now. We're looking for sound science, and the science just isn't there in our opinion. And we finally have a Secretary of Health and Human Services that is talking to parents like my wife and I that says, hey, a lot of these scientists are conflicted. The Faucis of the world should not be telling you when you should mask up your child or that COVID somehow is going to take them out. We've had so much politicization of science. We just need to get back to the basics, and we are going to restore science for what it is, which is so important. But so many people have taken advantage of their degree, of their level of trust that the American people had in them. And RFK is calling them out. And thank God he's doing so, because this is a commitment of the president. This is also a lot of suburban moms and dads are looking at this. When you look at food dye, trying to make America healthy again, trying to get rid of chronic disease in our country, this is all, like, these are 90-10 issues. These were liberal propositions before RFK and the president were elected. So I'm happy to see it. Kudos to our Secretary of HHS. This is not a controversial proposition. We need to get non-conflicted people on this board who are not going to sell out to Big Pharma and sell out our children.
Hooray. Hey, last question for you. I don't mean to keep you, but big, beautiful bill. You guys still feel really good about where it is in the timeline?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we're going to be cautiously optimistic. Anything on Capitol Hill is never a for sure thing. I would never bet on Capitol Hill. I would always bet on, this president. But the reality is we're working as hard as we can possibly do to get this bill across the finish line. Caroline Levitt was on Capitol Hill today to talk to Republicans and say, hey, guys, this bill is everything you guys campaigned on in one big, beautiful bill. Tax cuts. You talk about what's happening in California. We are going to give ICE raises. We're going to make sure that we're giving them the tools that they need to make sure that our border is secure. MAGA accounts for children. Our next child will have $1,000 deposited into their bank account. And then when they're 25 years old, they're going to have thousands of dollars of seed money to go into the world and make something of it. This bill is so good. It's everything the president championed on the campaign trail. Why any Republican would sit back and try to deny the president his agenda. It's so frustrating to see, but I think we're going to come around. We've got an amazing team shepherding this bill across the finish line, and I do think you'll see one big, beautiful bill signed in the next couple of weeks.
That's what I like to hear. Harrison Fields, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Good to see you, my friend.
All right. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.